The story is the race for California governor. The San Francisco Chronicle has endorsed former Congresswoman Katie Porter, one of several newspapers across the state to back her campaign. In fact, every newspaper with an editorial board that's endorsed has backed her. But a new internal poll from the California Democratic Party shows that Republican Steve Hilton and Democrats Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer are the frontrunners to advance to the general election. Former Congresswoman Katie Porter joins us here live right now in the studio. Congresswoman, welcome back to The Story Is. Great to have you in person here for the first time.
It's great to be here.
So how do you see the state of the race? We've had this interesting phenomenon where ballots were mailed out a couple weeks ago, and yet people are holding on to their ballots in a way we've never seen before.
Ballot return is slow, and particularly slow among Democrats. I think that's because a lot of people are still making up their mind. I think there was a lot of concern a few months ago about whether or not 2 Republicans could get through. That is now not a concern, and I think some Democrats are starting to realize, oh, actually, we should just get to know the Democratic candidates and pick who we think is going to be the best leader, and they're having a chance now to do that.
Why do you think Javier Becerra has sort of rocketed up after the Swalwell dropping out?
I can't really figure that out entirely, but I will say that I think the way that we've conducted this campaign, focusing on what we would actually do to lower costs for families, has been a real contrast to what he's talked about. There's a lot of all get her done, a lot of all have a meeting. And I think what we've really tried to say is look at your paycheck. Look at how much is coming out for California state income taxes. Mm-hmm. If you're earning less than $100,000, when I'm governor, you won't have that money gone from your paycheck. Talking about, saying to people, look at what college is going to cost. Imagine being able to raise a family here, knowing that you could have free college, period, full stop. These are real solutions to bring down costs. And I think that for people who care about the future of California, you ought to be looking for concrete, real policy solutions. And I think that's what drove those newspaper endorsements.
And it's interesting that you and Steve Hilton, the Republican in the race, are both for this tax cut for people under $100,000.
Well, I think it reflects the fact that both of us are really focused on not doing the same things that Democrats have been doing. I'm a Democrat, Steve's a Republican. We are very different on so many issues, including the environment and obviously on Donald Trump. But I think what we're seeing from a lot of politicians is describing the problem of unaffordability. You hear this from Tom Steyer all the time. He says, I've heard that California is unaffordable. Well, we would have to hear it because it's not unaffordable for Tom. But I think
he's a billionaire.
He's a billionaire.
He spent almost $200 million on the campaign.
Making this now the most expensive gubernatorial race in the nation's history. But I think what I'm focusing on is what do we do about that problem? I don't need, as a single mom of 3 kids, I know it's expensive here. I'm the one who pushes a shopping cart. I'm focused on what could we change? What are the levers? What are the tools that the governor has to actually bring down costs and quickly, because we need to keep growing our population. We need to keep adding people to our state.
One of the biggest costs for families is health care. And you have been very clear that you believe in single-payer health care in California. Javier Becerra has not been as clear in terms of what he's going to do. That's something we got into during the debate on CNN. But let's drill down on what single-payer health care costs, because an estimate by UCLA said it would cost over $700 million, which would make it $700 billion, which would make it 3 times more expensive than the entire state budget right now. How do we afford that?
Well, so let's remember, healthcare today isn't free. Employers are paying for it. Employees are paying for it. People are paying. The military is paying for it. Medi-Cal is paying for it. It's a big chunk of our federal budget. So the real question with single payer is, does single payer allow us to reduce, as an economy, as a society, looking across all the different people who chip in for healthcare, which right now is businesses and workers and the state and the federal government, does it let us deliver care more effectively? Look, Medicare spends only 2% of its healthcare money on administrative costs. Private health insurance spends 17 or 18%. So the question is, people hear that price tag, they're forgetting to add up all of what we spend on healthcare right now. It's a big reason that employers are struggling. They're spending more and more of their budget. Families are spending more of their budgets, especially after what Donald Trump's done on healthcare. So the question is, does single payer let us drive down the total cost of care and put more of our healthcare dollars toward making people healthy and curing illness rather than toward pushing paper and denying claims.
If we do that here in California, but other states don't do that, what's to stop people from coming to California, taking advantage of our health care, not necessarily paying into the system, and then, us all having to pay for that?
Well, look, everyone would probably, in a single payer system, you would have employers making a contribution to it, and you would likely have employees making some contribution. The money isn't going to fall from the sky, Alex. It would be funded. It was the same way with Medicare. People pay for Medicare. Medicare is not free. Our seniors, Medicare is a single payer system. Yeah. The government is the payer, but people chip in. They have copays, they have deductibles, they have supplements. So it would be the same kind of system here. People who would come to California, would be part of our society, would be contributing to that single payer system in the same way that we have seniors contributing to Medicare, both while they're working, but then also when they're seniors using that care.
What do you see as sort of the most important thing as we head towards the finish line of this race for voters that are now looking at that ballot? They haven't been able to decide. What's your message to them?
So I think voters need to really focus on what kind of future do they want California to have. And I think that if they want California to just keep on going exactly the way it has been going, then I think that Javier Becerra is that candidate. He's been pretty clear.
You think he's the most like Gavin Newsom?
No, I think he's the most like Sacramento. He's been a politician for 37 years. He's been doing this since he was elected, I think, the first time when I was in high school or college. And I'm, as my kids remind me, an unk. And so I think the question is, like, do we want to actually tackle some of the biggest challenges we're facing? Housing costs is not going to come down, and we're not going to grow our economy if we don't elect a governor who has more bold policies on housing. The specifics that I'm offering are different. And look, Tom Steyer's been really clear in this race about who he's against, right? He's against the big utilities. He's against corporations. He's against billionaires. But I think what makes me different is what I'm for and what I'm offering to do. So I just invite California families, think about what it would mean to have free healthcare, to have free childcare. Think about what it would mean to have a corporate tax system where the most profitable corporations paid a little bit more and struggling small businesses paid less. That would be really good for California's economy. The race is about the future. And I see a lot of voters trying to predict who's going to win, but this is not a racetrack. You're not trying to bet on necessarily the winning pony, although obviously we want a Democrat to win, but you're trying to think about who will actually deliver the best life for you. And on that, I'm really proud of my platform, what I'm offering in this race.
And if those policies got through, that would be a major change in policy for California.
Well, and we better hope we have a major change, because if we keep going, what we're going to see is families can't afford to live here. So we hear from voters that affordability is their top issue.
Right.
Look at my policies on affordability then, because I think they are head and shoulders above the rest of the field.
Katie Porter, best of luck in these final weeks on the campaign trail. Voting ends on June 2nd, and it has already begun for several weeks here in California, and then the counting could go just as long.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Always great to see you.